Thank you for joining us today, Susan. Susan from Curated Consultancy. We've chatted before in our podcast, and I thought it'd be quite a good idea to catch up online and just find out at the moment how best to deal with this situation. Obviously, there's a lot of people in furlough. There's some people still working. Just wanted to get your thoughts on how you go about managing that dynamic, I guess, and keeping people positive and going in the right direction.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, these are. This is not normal. We're not operating in normal circumstances, and they're not going to be normal for some time. So it's really important to kind of recognise that. And I think for leaders, running a business isn't easy at the best of times, and these are probably some of the worst of times that people have experienced. So I think it's really important for leaders to kind of put their own oxygen mask on first. And really look after themselves and demonstrate, their work on their resilience. Resilience is something that you can learn and work on, and it's about strength and toughness, but it's also about adaptability. So I think it's really time for leaders to really be conscious of their own looking after themselves first, so that they can look after others, because how they are feeling will impact on the people that they're leading. So I think an exercise to do. I mean, there's the Kubler-Ross change curve that probably it's doing the rounds at the moment. Probably lots of people have seen, and it's worth kind of just having a look at. I think the thing to point out about that at this point of in time is that it was designed to help people through the grief cycle. But they use it when we talk about change, and right now there's like multiple changes all coming at different angles, and the thing with the curve is that you're trying to recognise where are you on that curve as a leader, and it might be in one regard you're further ahead, and in another something else you're still trying to come to terms with it. So recognising where you are on that change curve. But also that helps in terms of that emotional intelligence and relating to the people that you're managing. So if you're talking to someone that you're managing and they're being very defensive, it's kind of recognising, well, that you're still here on the change curve, and I need to help to move them into the next stage of it. So if they're in denial, what information, how do I educate them, and how do I move them along? If they're angry, how do I listen and demonstrate empathy? So I think just having that, using it as a bit of a tool to recognise where are you, and not assuming that everyone else is at the same point as you are. So quite often leaders are people who are quite naturally optimistic and resilient and all those sorts of things. But as a leader, you need to make sure you're bringing your people with you, and they might not be there yet. And just you recognising that you might be here and they might be there, and your job is to get them to here and shorten that curve and flatten that curve. Not the flattening the curve of another curve that you're trying to flatten and shortening, and get people to that point of acceptance and moving on with you. But to do that, you need to look after yourself first, and you need to recognise where you are and relate that to people and demonstrate that emotional intelligence right now.
That is really interesting, actually. I hadn't thought about it like that. The different stages people are at, and that, I think, highlights it certainly from a communications point of view, how important your communications is, how clear it is, and to really think about different people at different stages, and to think, because I think there's sometimes a perception that, well, I'll just do an FAQs or I'll put some comms out and it'll be absolutely fine, but people are accepting that and taking that in and reading that at different stages, and it means something different to different people, and it's really, that is actually a real challenge. Do you find that people there's some good examples of people communicating well out there, that they're really they've got a handle on it? There's a few good examples out there, I've noticed, but you come across any?
So it's funny, the bad examples always come to mind first. Let me tell you a good example, and then I'll have to tell you the bad one, because it's so appalling, really. So in terms of good communications at this point in time, you're absolutely right. You're trying to understand. You put yourself in that person's shoes. What is it that they want to know? So the key thing from a communications perspective is it's so important to have some consistency and reliability right now. So you might think that you're communicating, but spend a bit of time and plan that out and say, you know, when are you communicating to who, with what channel, and think about it in terms of what are the organisation level communications, what are the communications at a team level, and how are you communicating with individuals and connecting with them.
Yeah.
You know, I think again, you know, communication is about demonstrating your competence. So, you know, telling people, connecting people with the purpose of your business, connecting people, and so you're communicating with people about, you know, telling them what you know, equally telling them what you don't know, because, you know, that is just as important. And being honest about that it is really important. And there's good examples of that where I think the New York governor, you know, his communications are so clear, and he demonstrates the other element that we really need right now. So there's the element about demonstrating your competence, but also the connection. And he has really personalised it. He really talks about, you know, these are not statistics, these are people, and they gave them names. So I think it's that element of not just communicating in a very matter of fact way and communicating your competence. You need to make sure that you're connecting, otherwise people won't believe you, and people won't really listen to that message.
Sorry, I know I was going to say that from your last point, I really take that is that you've got to have that emotional connection with people so that they do. I mean, there are things you have to tell people. You have to show a level of competence to say we're handling this situation, but you have to deal with people on an emotional level as well. Otherwise, they will really struggle with a situation where it's possibly quite alien to a lot of people. You know, working from home or working with kids who are running around and you're trying to do homeschooling and all that. Really difficult situations. So you've got to connect emotionally with people to be able to do that, and you've got to tailor your communications just right. I think you're spot on, actually.
And the examples of one that, you know, obviously I mentioned the New York example, but the other one that I really like that's kind of stuck out for me has been the messages from the Sainsbury's CEO. So I get my message from Sainsbury's telling me about, you know, what's happening, what measures that they're taking, how they're looking after their employees. They demonstrate their values in those messages as well. So, you know, they've really, it's just very interesting to see just those communications and updates even to customers. So I'm sure their internal communications are just as strong, but you know, they update, you know, even as a customer, they're saying to us, you know, we're working on prioritizing and finding more slots for vulnerable people, and you know, we've now increased the number of slots. So you've got this kind of updates, so there's real structure to it, that, you know, I know what to expect from my Sainsbury's email. I know that he's going to tell me about the supply chain. I know that he's going to tell me that you know, last week they had X many of slots for vulnerable people. This week they've got Y many, and they're telling me what they're doing and how they're doing it and the progress that they're making. So I've been impressed with that, and that message comes from the Sainsbury's CEO. The bad example that, as I say, you know, it just immediately comes to mind. US-based company called Bird. I think it's electric scooters that they make. This one's gone viral, you know, and this is the. You know, so basically the employees of that organisation were all invited to join a Zoom call with no notice, and it was just a, you know, update call or whatever. And on that call, they were told that they were being let go. And, you know, the thing that really sort of, you know, kind of jarred with me was that it was the EA to the CEO that held that call. So there were, you know, as I say, it's gone viral. You'll be able to Google it. You know, and this is where, you know, your values. I always talk about values, purpose and values when I'm working with organisations, and you know, you can imagine that they've got values on their website that say something like, you know, we value our people, or whatever it might be, or we're all one team, and all that sort of stuff. I'll need to Google it and see what their values are, but you know, it's that sort of thing that's like, this is the time now to live and breathe them. You know, this is the time now, because you know, that has got to, because I talk about you know, your employer brand and it being 360. So how you treat your employees internally is how you know, they will treat their your external customers. And this is just such a bad example, and will no doubt affect the value of that business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we've talked again about this before. The importance of good culture and good values, and they start with your staff, because your staff will then carry that out and take that out to your customers. And social media is so powerful nowadays that it can amplify that message tenfold, in the same way that bad customer experience is exactly the same. Bad staff experience is really, it can go viral, as you pointed out, and that is it's not great for the business. So. And
it's also about, so I mean, obviously your first thoughts are for those employees who have had that experience. It's just a shocking way to treat people. But what about the other, I don't know how many, who are still working for Bird right now? How motivated and engaged do they feel to be productive and get that business out of the other side of it? They now feel very disposable, vulnerable, and undervalued. So it's really important that you think about the implications of what you're doing, and values are a great way to hold yourself to account.
And do you think now, I mean, obviously, just kind of a final question, nobody's got a crystal ball here, but do you think this will help businesses to really understand, a situation like this will help them to understand how important values are? I mean, I appreciate sometimes it can be things written on a wall, and and they're up there, and they're kind of they're seen by marketing. The marketing team will put them up there, and that's great. But this really means something now, and this has helped a lot of businesses to get through that. Do you think that will be the case now going forward post-COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are really getting it now anyway. A lot of it I work mostly with startup and scale-up businesses, and they know that the third top reason why startup businesses fail is because they didn't have the right people. They didn't engage those people. Investors more and more are recognising culture as competitive advantage, and they're really testing that when they're looking at whether they invest in a business or not. So I think newer startup and scale-up businesses are getting that more, and that's why they are disrupting the market to a large extent as well, because people want to buy from, invest with, work for businesses who have purpose and values.
Yeah.
So I think startup and scale-up businesses do get that more and more. The trick is, as I say, that a lot of people can have good intentions about identifying purpose and values, and then they think that's brilliant, and we've done that piece of work, we've got them now. And we'll put them on our website, we'll put them on the wall, we'll put get mugs on the lanyards, all that stuff that goes on. And I think when the last time we spoke about this, we talked about living and not laminating, not getting them on a poster, but actually that they are the reality, and that people, I think one of the tests that I love is, do your employees know them, but also would your clients be able to, what would your clients say that your values are, having necessarily known them. So really the test now, and what people need to take out of this is making them a reality in their businesses, and that takes work. And the more you're talking about them, the more that you're building them into communications, the more you build them into the way you recruit, select, promote, recognise, reward, all those sorts of things that reinforce them, the way that you refer to them in your communications, the way that you say, because our people are important to us, we're taking these steps right now, we're closing down the offices, those sorts of things. So I think that they're really important. So getting them right, getting those taglines for them right are really important to the communication, so that you can keep referencing them easily. Quite often they can be quite externally focused, or they can be just words that you wouldn't really notice. So it would be like, oh, what's your value? Integrity. If you mentioned it, it's just a word. So trying to craft them in a way that they're recognisable is really important as well.
No, absolutely. Well, listen, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate your taking some time in. Do you want to just give us an idea of where people can find your updates and where they might be able to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so So I'm Susan McRoberts from the Curated Consultancy, and you can find me on LinkedIn, connect with me on there, get in touch, send me a message. Happy to have conversations with people. This stuff really matters to me. So, you know, if there's businesses who are interested in how they identify their values and bring them to life in their organisation, so not just going through an exercise, but actually are serious about, you know, being a way of operating their businesses, then I'd love to get to hear from them and help.
Sounds good. That's great. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak to you soon, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you, and take care.
Bye.